Thank you for joining me for this audio commentary of, it's called Untitled 4 and 5 from Lugman No Hands. I'm assuming that you've already listened to the track, which is freely available on my music Patron page. If you haven't, you might want to have a 10-minute cup of tea to listen to it without my voice on top. Or we can just get started. I'm going to play the track and I'm just going to talk you through the making of it and give you a bit of insight into the process. I've not rehearsed this, it's an experiment. I'd love to hear what you think about it at the end, so make sure you send me a comment. So the track, this is about 15 minutes into the show, 10-15 minutes into the show, a 30-minute journey of friendship, and this arrives at a point where the two characters have had a huge falling out. One has really exceeded the other's boundaries, and at this moment it's a moment of like reconciliation and forgiveness and understanding. And we started off with this kind of cycling progression between variations on a D and an E chord, and for me it felt very much like an inching process. So it starts off with a D, and then you add an element of an E, and then it's up to an E, and then an E7. And this track for me was one of the first, actually, considering that I'm a guitarist first and foremost. I've been using Ableton, it's all composed in Ableton for a long time, using synthesizers and samples, and I really enjoyed just being able to play something quite languishing and gentle, a few harmonics. And we have this recurring motif, this and that there's a bit of software, a plugin called Valhalla Shimmer, which gives it this really kind of spacey, cavernous feeling, which I use a lot on my productions to just give them more warmth. It's a technique. It's based on a Brian Eno process from the 80s. If you listen to like a lot of Harold Budd records, they have this very sort of beautiful kind of shimmer, like a gorgeous psychedelic cloud. Anyway, in the background here we've now got, you can hear it just in the background, this little tapping. This is actually a drum machine that I'm using in Ableton, which is made out of a recording of a toucan that I found on Twitter, which I found really funny. It's this little toucan that's just kind of like walking up to the camera, and its bill chatters. And what you're able to do is just take really small slices of that sample, and you get this wonderful, I think it's like it's organic quality to the sound, and it'll get busier and end up sounding a bit more like clapping as the track goes on. And we've also got this other sample of a guitar, which sounds quite kind of grainy, quite smoky. I kind of visualize it almost as when sun comes out and water starts evaporating on the street after a big storm. It's this kind of gaseous, can't remember the word. But we're starting to increase in tempo, and all the while the dancers have been kind of interacting, performing, kind of dancing to each other and finding moments of mirroring and reflection, but also difference. And they're starting to come closer and closer together and finding more accord. And this whole piece is called Untitled 4 and 5 because it's originally was two different tracks to mark two different scenes. The first one being about the reconciliation, and the fifth one about a gradual coming apart. So it felt like we need to increase the pace of the piece. It's getting more exciting, but then we need to start to have elements of Discord. Actually, right now we've got a sample of Daryl Beaton, who is the founder of Daryl Beaton Productions. This is a sample of his wheelchair, which we made together 2 years ago, actually, when I was working at Drake Music as an artist in residence. I was running an online workshop about how to use Ableton and asked people to submit a sound. And Daryl, I think, was just running like a spoon or a fork alongside the wheelchair spokes. And I just love the kind of pace that it gives. It's, you know, like a drumming hi-hat. And you can hear the toucan drum machine. It's starting to become a bit more syncopated, with a kind of like clapping quality. And there's more kind of space between this simple like D and E. We don't have this kind of like inching through different variations. It's just like D and E. We're having more conviction, I guess. And there's a low bass, a kind of a drone, which to me sounds a bit grounding but also a bit ominous. And now we have this sort of very, very simple kind of insistent piano and electric piano kind of doubling line. Those sounds, those woo sounds, that's still electric guitar. Again, I'm using a couple of effects in Ableton. I'm using an echo, and I'm using a slide just to go up the guitar strings. And there's also a frequency shifter, which weirdly, it sounds like it's going up and down at the same time. And I love this sound because it reminds me of Subterranean Homesick Alien, I think it is, from OK Computer. I was huge, and still am, a huge Radiohead fan. And I love Johnny Greenwood's guitar work. It was basically through playing along to Radiohead records and Muse records that I learned. Anyway, now we're starting to kind of get even more kind of frenetic. We have this it's quite high, it's this arpeggiated, it's like on a different time signature to kind of like give it this extra sense of motion. The wheelchair spokes are panning left to right. There's a much more sense of kind of swirl, and it's a toucan sound that's making that weird like crunchy, crackly sound, almost like gears starting to kind of shift. And we're really firmly into like track 5 territory now. We've gone from Untitled 4 to Untitled 5, and it's all kind of the piece. This scene doesn't kind of reach like a fracture moment, but it's just before it. And so we have this just like very simple. We've gone from D to C sharp minor. And we just leave the piano to fade out. We leave the wheelchair spokes just to keep running for a bit as we transition to the next track, which is where all of the tension that's been simmering up through this really comes to a head. And who knows, maybe that might be a good track to do another audio commentary on. So yeah, this is my first one. Give me feedback. Tell me what you liked. Tell me what you want to hear more of. Maybe what you want to hear less of. And yeah, thank you very much for tuning in.